What is the stupidest way you almost died? Oh wow, this just reminded me of the one time I actually was afraid of imminent death. I was snorkeling with sea turtles in Taiwan and didn't notice I was getting too close to the coral shelf that made up the shore. There was one sandy inlet which you needed to use to get in and out. A big wave came and threw me on top of the sharp coral. I was entirely disoriented and wave after wave was just smashing on me and jostling me, which could potentially get me stuck and drowned in any number of little crevices. After what was probably 30 seconds but felt like 5 minutes, I managed to compose myself enough to start crawling away. I walked away with some scratches and a missing booty. Similarly, as a kid swimming at my neighbor's house, neighbor kid had the brilliant idea to throw a giant kiddie pool into the in-ground pool so we could float around in it like a boat. Got stuck underneath it and couldn't find my way out of the water for a few minutes. My vision started to go dark and close in, and I felt like I was in a dream. Strangely, I was thinking about how mad my mom was going to be if I died, but as soon as I found an opening, I burst up out of the water, only for his little sister to collide with me as she was jumping into the pool, and she pulled me back under before I could even steal a breath. I just remember throwing her off and pushing up to the surface with my last bit of strength. Similar story. I was around 9, swimming in a water canal with a bunch of my older and younger cousins. Boom. I get sucked into a water drain opening. This thing would have been an 8 feet wide pipe that ran under a 4-lane highway before meeting up with opposing water canal. Anyways, I certainly thought I was going to die that day. I didn't think anyone had seen me getting sucked in. It's been decades, but I remember holding onto the edge of this pipe fighting insane amount of water pressure. I couldn't see anything and water was hitting the back of my throat as I tried to gasp for air. Even as a child, I knew I was about to drown and come out as a corpse out the other end of this dark tunnel. Right when I'm about to give up, or maybe it was the very moment I let go, I felt a hand come down and grab my wrist and just yank me out of this hole. Turns out my older cousin saw the whole thing and rushed over. Went to go visit a friend in Gloucester, Mass in winter back in high school, far from my home. I was planning on staying overnight at their house, but their mother, who I now know has mental health problems, wouldn't even let me in the house because the father wasn't home working a night shift. Friend said sorry bro and closed the door. Almost froze to death waiting outside in 10-degree F at night. A cab driver saw me slumped on a bench and woke me up. Let me get warm and drive around in the passenger seat while he picked up drunk people out on the town all night. When he finished his shift, he dropped me off at the train station and handed me $7 for the fare. Dude probably saved my life and I can't even remember his name. I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, I was getting off the school bus and was walking around to the other side to my driveway. Suddenly the bus driver hits the horn, scared the hell out of me, and I stopped at the edge of the front of a bus and a dump truck good speeding around. I don't know if the dump truck driver didn't see the lights of the bus or whatever, but that driver made a dumb mistake that could have cost me my life. Thinking about it, my older sister was up at our driveway waiting for me, probably would have messed her up for life. After that, the school district changed bus routes to avoid students having to cross the road to get on or off the bus. So I'm 30 and going back to school, and ended up at a mostly women's school, just setting the stage, me and 20-some 17 to 18-year-old girls in a chemistry lab. Now this was not a 101 chem class, we were practicing fecal samples from sick dogs. I can't tell you how many of these girls just straight up stuck their faces in samples filled with Giardia and Coccidia. Like, dude, first of all, why are you face checking a cup of poop? Get that shit on a slide and examine it properly. But also, man, for sophomore level vet techs, you should probably have a better sense of how disgusting animal parasites are. I think if you're a registered voter and you think it's okay to touch fecal samples from sick animals with your bare hands, maybe animal care is not in your future. Go get an animal science degree or something, but stay away from actually handling animals, you grossi. I was at a waterpark in Texas with one of those super tall, straight down slides. They had multiple signs saying things like "Do not push off before sliding down." Me being an 18-year-old idiot and wanting to race my friend, I decided to push off. That extra push started my slow motion, airborne flight over the slide. I was then staring 100 feet down at concrete and my other friend who had his jaw open. What felt like minutes later, I smacked back down onto the slide and made my way down to the bottom. Thank God for the engineers that planned for suicidal idiots like myself. Had experience snowboarding and went with some friends up a black diamond run. I was scared to fall, so I would squat so I would have less distance to fall. The person reading this laughing so far knows this makes you go faster. So anywho, I took a tumble worse than Scarlet while going full speed and felt lightness except my hand caught what I thought was a branch. When the snow cleared, my hand was wrapped up in a red safety net and I was hanging about 4 stories off the mountain. That was the most committed pull-up of my life. Great times. I walked into a back room freezer of a grocery store. The huge door was designed to close automatically. I knew this and went in and did what I was there to do. After 30 seconds, I couldn't catch my breath. I thought maybe I was just working too hard, so I stopped and took several huge breaths. Nothing. I felt like I was drowning out of water. I had to move as quickly as I could back outside of the freezer and feel to my knees gasping when I got out. It was only afterwards I realized for some dumb reason someone kept open dry ice in a cart inside of the freezer. Dry ice removes oxygen out of the air in enclosed spaces. I almost died from lack of oxygen and would have been an icicle when they found me. When I was 17, my college professor sent me out to pick up a large order of dry ice. It was going to be used for a special effect in the theater production we were working on. I put the stuff in my hatchback and started driving. Couple miles in, I'm sitting at a traffic light and decide I need to take a nap. Right now. I managed to put the car in park and close my eyes. All the honking cars gave me enough panic to note the recirculating air button was on and I rolled down the window. Instantly back awake and wondering what the hell had happened. No one had thought to warn the dumb 17-year-old about dry ice. Very different situation, but store freezers are terrifying. I work at Walmart and stepped into the small bakery freezer one day and the door closed behind me. Turned around to get out and the latch wasn't working. I quickly started panicking. Someone would have found me, but I was so cold. I tried calling my boss, but due to the fact that I was in a metal box I didn't have any reception. I started pounding on the latch and it opened. Apparently this isn't the first time it's happened. Time to call OSHA IG. God, I completely fucking forgot. When I was like 14 or 15 I found out about breath play from some dumb adult comedy show we shouldn't have been watching. I was curious and dumb, so when I went to bed that night I stuck my head inside my pillowcase, with the pillow over my face, and tied it on tightly with a bathrobe cord. Of course my dumb little fucking idiot self couldn't get it untied again. I freaked out and was just going nuts, pulling on any random bit of cord I could get my fingers into, trying to pull the pillow off, but all I was doing was compressing the knots down tighter. I remember feeling really dizzy and rapidly seesawing between desperately sucking in hot wet breaths of carbon dioxide, and then just going completely still and feeling like I didn't need to breathe anymore, like I could just lie there peacefully. Then, when I was a kid, I dipped my toes into a flooded creek to see how it felt. Proceeded to get sucked into said creek and nearly washed away. Thankfully, the creek had some overgrown areas, and I was able to cling to a tree in the middle of the flood water and scream for help. This happened directly behind my house, so my dog heard me, alerted my dad, and my dad managed to rescue me. What makes this extra stupid was that I was trying to prevent my friend at the time from doing the same thing. He wanted to surf down the creek on a snow sled. I was following him, telling him it was a bad idea, and then like a dumbass, I ended up in the creek instead. He also gave me shit afterwards for ruining his stunt. Kids are fucking stupid, I guess. My horse cut that same artery while he was being shod. He had a nail sticking out of the side of his hoof, the farrier hadn't crimped it down, and he took one step sideways and cut the artery on the opposite leg. He almost bled out before I got it stopped about 10 minutes later. Huge amounts of blood gushing everywhere, and I'm holding onto the foot of a 1,000-pound animal that's getting wobbly, and that I love dearly. It was really terrifying. Stuck my head out the car window BC. I wanted to see why dogs loved it. My grandpa didn't notice, rolled up the window, and I choked. He freaked out when he heard the cat-like noises, ironic, I was making while my neck was trying to squeeze through the small opening of the window, but kept raising the window in his panic. Eventually he got it and I was left with a red mark on my neck and no closer to understanding dogs. Edit, thanks for the awards. My grandpa passed earlier this year, so it's a nice way to remember him, and I know he get a chuckle to know people found it funny. Edit 2, it was meant to be funny, so don't feel bad for laughing. My lil sis was in the seat next to me when this happened and she was laughing too, funny then, funny now. I was riding my bike to either the school or the supermarket, I can't remember. I was maybe like 12-13 years old. In my town you can't really ride a bike on the street, so I had to use the sidewalk. On my way I had to ride across a bus stop with a ton of people just blocking the way for me and my bike. So I decided to hop onto the street, and up onto the sidewalk again later. Those people were blocking my view, so I didn't see a bus coming my way. I just barely hopped onto the sidewalk and the bus missed me by a few centimeters. After that, I didn't really understand what happened. I waited over a week with stomach pains in college, thinking it was gas or something. Got so bad I couldn't sleep, but still waited all night to go to urgent care when they opened the next morning, instead of going to the ER. They told me it was my appendix and asked if I wanted an ambulance. I didn't want to cause a scene and elected to drive to the ER. Got to the ER and vomited in their trash can. Was in surgery within 20 minutes. Was in the hospital for 2 weeks with an NG tube and catheter. Everyone said I almost died. In my early teens a bunch of us kids would get super stoned and boogie board down the local river. The river was probably a class 3 at its gnarliest and an easy class 2 for the majority of the float. Well, anyways, the first time we went down the river a massive maple, a strainer, had uprooted and fallen directly perpendicular into the river. It looked super cool, so my plan was to paddle over to the crown of it and climb atop it when I got close. Well, anyways, I missed my mark and headed towards the trunk instead. The water was much too deep to do any jumping and the speed had picked up around the tree. I crashed into the trunk and my body was pinned directly under the trunk. I remember being able to reach my hands out of water and could see the water line, but physically could not unpin my body. Luckily my friend was a ways back and saw everything. He successfully jumped atop the crown, ran down the trunk to where my arms were flailing out of the water and pulled my body up and over. We both crashed into the water on the other side and he paddled us to shore. My homie's autistic brother was in the deep end of a wave pool. He can't swim without fluids. So he called for help and I jumped in. As I was trying to swim with one hand and carry him with the other, I heard the siren for the big wave that happens every few minutes. So I tried to quickly swim away, but it caught up and pushed us under. I accidentally tried to breathe and that put quite a bit of water in me. Just then I felt someone grab me and pull me out of the water. It was my homie. And he also grabbed his brother. So after I threw up a bunch of water and rested a bit, I realized that I almost died in a wave pool. Caught in a massive storm while hiking in the back country of Canaveral seashore, like horizontal rain, can't see 2 feet in front of you, the sky is trying to purge something evil kind of rain. As I prepared hiker, I pulled out my poncho to cover up, but the wind had picked up so fast that as soon as I put it over my head, it immediately got twisted around me and blown across my face. I couldn't breathe as I started to panic and flail my arms about to pull the plastic sheeting off face and not suffocate in a freaking poncho. My boyfriend said I looked like a dementor the way the plastic was being sucked to my face and mouth. Luckily he was there to help and it ended up being a fun adventure, but that minute of ridiculous panic was a definite close call. I was at a Pink Floyd concert at the old Tampa Stadium, was going to get a beer. I got crushed against a wall at the bottom of a stairway, when a rush of people came up the breezeway. I couldn't move or breathe, probably 100 or more people in a logjam. I'm not a big person, started to panic, looked up and a guy looked over the rail above me. He started yelling to me to reach for his hand. He leaned way over and grabbed my hand and pulled me up like 8 or 9 feet and over the rail. Took a few minutes to get a breath. He had the security guy get the medic to check me over. Freaky close to a very bad ending. There's a shopping mall near where I live and I was pushing one of those metal shopping carts since the shopping mall has 2 supermarkets. One on the 2nd floor and another right below it. I usually go to the one on the 2nd floor and go to the one below it. Well, I ended up buying a lot of groceries on the 2nd floor and I usually take the escalator to go to the supermarket downstairs since it's faster. With a heavy cart on one hand and a croissant in the other, I attempt to go down the escalator and I literally almost fell down the escalator with the cart, and my sister saved me cause she grabbed my arm in time. I almost died cause of a croissant. Death by croissant, a shameful death indeed. Went on a party bus when I was 18, cops came where we were getting dropped off. I stayed on the bus apparently cleaning up, I don't remember, talked to the cops and had to take a breathalyzer, blew a 0.34 BAC and got brought to jail, warrant from an unpaid previous minor consumption. Cops called my mom and said I should have been on my ass, yet I was walking and talking as coherent as one would be when they are somewhat drunk, said I should be nearly dead. Also that I probably have a drinking problem. Waking up in jail not knowing how I got there was a huge eye-opener for me. Edit. They said I do have a drinking problem. And not proud of this. I'm 28 now and drink responsibly. Last November I was walking back to my duck barn with an obedience dog by our pool. I did not give it a command to move out to the left and he knocked me down. I broke my 4 front teeth when I hit the concrete and I rolled into the pool. I was able to get out because I called a bigger dog and she jumped into the pool and she took me to the stairs. Stupidest thing I have ever done, and it is still costing me. So far at $12,000 out of pocket for my teeth and still not done. All because I did not say the word left. When I was 16 I was in the back seat of my buddy's car on the way home from the beach. We were goofing around listening to Blink-182 and I decided I was going to turn my air guitar into a seatbelt guitar. I do the old guitar behind my back thing and suddenly I have created this wonderful loop around my neck. This happens right as my friend brakes hard and locks the seatbelt. Because I had stretched it to max length, the belt would not release from my neck and I slowly passed out as my friends panicked as to what to do. I eventually woke up. My friends bent my neck down and around the seatbelt, leaving an enormous bruise around my neck. Felt like I was getting a UTI, but I didn't have any health insurance. Planned Parenthood's next open appointment was 2 weeks away. I tried to drink cranberry juice and take Azo, but it ended up spreading to my bladder and then my kidneys before I was finally able to get in to see the doc and start taking antibiotics. It makes me so fucking angry to think about it. Because of my country's lack of healthcare I almost died from holding my pee in too long. I also get really infuriated thinking of my teacher yelling at me for resting my head on my desk during break because I had a super high fever, or the woman at the pharmacy that insisted I had already picked up my antibiotics and charged me $75, which was literally all the money I had in the world, for another dose. It's really terrifying to know you're really, really sick, and have everyone around you insisting that you're fine. I was only a few days away from blood poisoning.